Okay, then. I think that we are live now. If y'all could sound off in the comments, let me know that you can both see and hear me because occasionally things do go wrong between my end and your end, and I'd love to know sooner rather than later if that is the case, and I need to fix some things. So, yeah, please sound off in the chat. In the meantime, for those of you that are new here, let me take you through what we do here in Tech Tips. So, Um, Tech Tips is basically my monthly live stream. It happens the last Friday of every month. And the idea here is that I'm going to give you half an hour of a poi lesson. My hair's sticking up all over the place. And then we're going to do a half an hour long Q&A at the end. You can ask me any question you want. We'll see if I answer. But yeah, there's no topic that's off guard. We've talked about how to do different poi tricks. We've talked about things in like the flow world. We've talked about politics at one point, I believe. Anyway, so hold on to those questions for the last half an hour. I'm starting this up where I'm at 7 o'clock p.m. I'm going to be streaming until we get to 8 o'clock usually, and then I usually wrap things up. Rain, hello, how you doing out there? Um, so yeah, I'm going to give it until about 5 after for people to go ahead and saunter on in here. I did something different today in that I sent out notifications 15 minutes before streaming rather than like right as I was starting up. But yeah, Ruben Castano says one-handed poi tricks. Hopefully, yep. I will. I will definitely be handling. I will definitely be demonstrating some one-handed poi tricks today. Kurt Hobbs, hello. Thank you for making it. Um, as we're waiting for people to file in here, I will also just take a moment to thank the sponsor of Tech Tips, which is UltraPoi. They're the reason I do these monthly live streams. Um, and if you would like sets of the poi that I'm going to be using today, I'm going to be using both their new Orb Poi Pros, which the review for these is coming out in 2 weeks. I have another video on Fire Festival coming out on Monday, which is already available to my Patreon supporters. But the review for these is coming out a week from Monday, so be on the lookout for it. I will also be using a heavily modified set of these Helix Poi Pros because, of course, we're talking about glow stringing tonight, and these are closer to being traditional glow sticks. If you want to get sets of either of these sets of poi, you can do that by heading on over to ultrapoi.com and using my promo code DrexFactor with a 0 instead of an O at checkout. Not only will that get you a discount on your order, it also helps out the channel. So everybody wins. Thanks so much in advance. Yeah, I will. We're at 3 past the hour where I am. It should be 3 past the hour where everyone is, but it's 3 past 7 where I am. I'm going to give it until about 5 after to let people let to let people come in here. Um, I'm just realizing nobody in the chat has actually verified that they can hear me and see me just fine. So just to calm my anxiety on that front, can at least one person out there chime in and say, yes, I can hear you and see you just fine? That would be very helpful. Yeah. It has been a busy month. I have had something going on every single Friday of this month. It's been wild. It's been super wild, including this Friday, of course. I actually kind of, Ruben Castano says, hear you and see you just fine. Fantastic. Rain verifies. Outstanding. Yeah. Edgar Diaz, you're all loud and clear. Fantastic. Loud and clear from Kurt. Samantha Ponga says loud and clear. Huzzah. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Yay. Thanks for verification on that, everybody. Because again, it's not unknown that sometimes everything will look fine on my end, but things will not be so good out there in space. Maybe my AirPods weren't connected properly or some such, who knows. But yeah, anyway, so we're at 5 past the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and start up our lesson here. Let me switch over to Switch over to the room camera. Cool, cool. How's everybody's week, by the way? Mine has been very, very busy. Um, so y'all have seen me spin plenty of contact poi over the years, and I've gotten really, really used to them. Um, I have always appreciated the fact that contact poi makes stalls look really good because not only do they concentrate the weight down at the end of the poi, they also concentrate people's attention down at the end of the poi. Like, if you've followed any of Ronan McLaughlin's work in doing vertical stacking, like so, then you will know that there's something to be said about having that single point of attention that the hand can rotate around. It works whether you're doing these vertical stacks, whether you are doing horizontal stacks, works great for stalls. And of course, it works great for doing contact poi itself. Although this isn't like offhand a feature of these. I also love doing gunslingers with these simply because I use them for everything else. I was very excited to find that you can do um, gunslingers with off-weight poi as well. It's very, very helpful. But there are some limitations to using contact poi, and some of them have become more and more apparent to me recently. As many of y'all know, I like to dance with my props, and contact poi are fairly heavy. Um, and that means both that if you want to pick up the tempo with them, then it's really a workout, as well as the fact that there's basically an upper limit on how fast you possibly can move them just because of inertia. Um, I have definitely found myself after long sessions in the studio um, pretty exhausted after wrestling with sets of contact poi as I'm working on dance and everything. Plus, which they kind of fall into a default in terms of tempo, where if you watch enough prop spinners, you will always find that all of them kind of have a default tempo that is like kind of a balance between the amount of energy that it keeps to keep the poi moving and just wherever their energy happens to be. So when it comes to contact poi, you really, really, really have to want it in order to go back and forth between things like doing super slow movements and then doing super fast movements, right? It's not impossible. It's not always fun. Or I should say, it takes some effort to get there, right? So a few weeks ago, I saw a video pop up on my Facebook feed that gave me a little bit of an aha moment. That video was of a person doing glow stringing. And suddenly, what I realized was that, actually, let me put the ends of these on solid mode so they'll show up a little bit better on camera here. There we go. Cool, yeah, that does show up better. Fantastic. All right, cool. Um, so in seeing this video, there was something that suddenly occurred to me, and that was that glow sticks, I have an extraordinarily hard time spinning because they're so light. Um, I'm so used to having to wrestle with a set of poi in order to get them to do what I want that very frequently when I pick up a set of glow sticks, I find myself like just number one hitting myself constantly, but also in a place where like even simple poi tricks all of a sudden just become like totally beyond my capabilities. Namely because in order to like mainly I will find that with lighter poi, my planes are no longer as solid as I would like them to be, and I'm also stuck in a place where all of my stalls and everything are so much harder because, of course, stalls are an entirely different beast when you use lighter poi. But here's the thing: like, if you'll note, my kind of default uh, tempo here is basically the same as it was with the contact poi. But if I want to speed up, all of a sudden I have this entire range of movement that was not available to me before. Something I really see frequently in Instagram videos of people that are dancers is that they will have moments where they're moving very slow, and then they will have movements where they drastically speed up the tempo. With contact poi, I have an upper limit. Like the upper limit of how fast I can move those is lower than the upper limit of how fast I can move my body. With glow sticks, that's not the case. With glow sticks, I can absolutely get them moving as fast as I want to with my body. I have the option both of doing the very, very slow that I'm used to doing with contact poi, as well as the very, very fast if I want to. Of course, when I go very, very fast, I have to be super careful about my planes because it's easiest to lose control of those planes when you're going fast, right? Okay, so this is, as I've been picking back up these glow stick form factor, these helix poi here, I've also been in the process of trying to like retrain myself on how poi spinning works with lighter sets of poi. So let me guide you through some of the things that I have learned in the course of that. One of those things, of course, is that like I think the biggest difference that I've come across is notice when I do stalls that like there's kind of a wiggle to this stick form factor. And the reason for that is that rather than having a bunch of the mass concentrated down at the end and then a transition into a tether, a big portion of that in mass is kind of distributed along this stick like form factor. And that means that when doing things like stalls, the change in momentum that I'm doing is not being applied equally across the mass of the poi. It's behaving somewhat differently here, here, and all the way down the tether. So it may not be obvious to those of you watching out there, but I certainly see that wiggle and it makes me less than happy. So how do you usually change direction with glow sticks? Well, that would involve wraps, which, as luck would have it, is also a great tool for doing more dance. I've long believed that glow sticks, and specifically glow stringing as an art form, is based around the idea of trying to swing around objects on strings inside of the smallest area possible. I think there's a reason that a lot of classic glow stringing doesn't involve any flowers whatsoever, even though like we know that flowers are a thing that people were doing with meals, club swinging, as far back as the early 20th century. Um, but it's not something that kind of percolated its way into glow stringing until poi took off in the early 2000s. So, number one, it's about creating changes in movement that happen inside of a very small area and that is more based around the interaction of the prop with the body rather than creating the kind of the geometric patterns that we see with poi spinning. So much of this comes down to wraps. And I will definitely make sure here to give myself a little wiggle room and say that I'm still in kind of the early phases of getting this down so that it feels more or less unconscious to me to be able to dance around with these. But as it stands right now, it really feels like the key to this is figuring out how to make the transition with wraps instead of with stalls. That said, I do think that there are still some applications for doing things like pendulums with these glow sticks. Pendulums still seem more or less to work intact. Now, of course, the thing that truly breaks my heart about stalls being something that's a little bit rougher here is that one of my favorite kinds of tricks, that is plane breaks, are that much harder. When you do plane breaks here, you really have to come in and out of something that I don't think is quite geared for them. Like performing a wrap into a plane change doesn't have the same kind of pop to me as going from a stall into a plane change, right? Which again, part of that might just be that I'm still at the beginning of this journey. And you can see a bunch of people popping off in the chat down there, and I will go check that out in just 1 second here. Um, I will also say that a lot of one-handed poi tricks that I have taken for granted for a good long time make a lot more sense in Glowstringer land. Not the least of which because almost all of the kind of Superman and Fantastic Four based moves are also moves that are based around wraps. Um, you know, I am such a huge fan of doing things like, meteor flowers, and specifically anti-spin meteor flowers. And of course, getting into like one-handed butterflies and one-handed Mercedes and things like that. Which again, if you don't have your planes down cold, and you'll find out real quick if you don't. Some of that stuff gets real sketchy. But doing these kind of real quick bounces back and forth with the poi make a lot more sense here because it's really about just kind of working in three-dimensional space in ways that traditional poi spinning really doesn't, you know? Um, I should also talk about different surfaces because this has been a fun discovery. And for those of you out there that are glow stringers, I'm sure this is all review. And if you have favorite tutorials on glow stringing that you want to link me with, by all means, put them into the chat. But the classical ones, at least the ones that I first learned, of course, involve going across the wrists. And really, what this is you're just playing around with thread the needles, and you're making the wraps happen across a surface that you create with your forearm. There's also, of course, I think of these as being bicep wraps, the ones where you go around your upper arm, which, of course, like you can do both of them around the same upper arm. You can do them around their own upper arms. And you can go around the opposite upper arm. There also, of course, is all the things that you can do wrapping around the legs. One thing I've been really enjoying playing around with, of course, is doing direction changes where coming out of a pendulum, you say, I need to back up a little bit so I think you guys can see this better. So coming out of a pendulum, when you kind of bring your poi around your knees, and of course, there's always the old favorite, the shotgun, when you need to change direction. A shotgun is just wrapping the entire thing around your hand and then unwrapping it in order to get in a direction shift. All of these have been really fun to try out and try and figure out how to make them work with the style of poi spinning that I am used to. Some of them are working real well and some of them aren't. I'm also still holding out hope that I can get in my stalls even with this form factor. But work on that is clearly ongoing. In the meantime, though, I am definitely appreciating the ability to go back and forth between that super slow spinning and getting in those big dynamic shifts because I think that they look really, really cool. And I think they're going to fit really well in lots of styles of music that I like because, of course, I tend to like stuff that is a little bit higher tempo, punk music and the like. And uh, dancing fast to that with sets of contact poi can not only be exhausting, but also incredibly difficult. Let me take a quick look at what people are saying in the chat here. Cool, cool, cool. He's so good, it looks effortless. Fair enough. Samantha Ponga has tested positive for COVID. No, I'm so sorry. You say you're doing fine, though. That's good to hear. You're currently in isolation, have time to focus on poi theory. Yes, as it pertains to flowing from trick to trick and watching lots of poi tutorials has been very good. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, the COVID finally came for me back in January, and I am very, very grateful for the fact that I had very, very minimal symptoms. I had a scratchy throat for 5 days, and that was it. I would never have known that I had COVID if I hadn't taken a test, and I'm glad that I did. Um, yeah, so you have my sympathies. Yeah, I hope that your case is as mild as mine, and good on you for doing the isolating. Not everybody is. Um, Samantha Pong is also saying traditional Maori poi are very light as well, which means you have to really focus. Yes, it is also on my to-do list to learn the traditional Maori style. I think I mentioned this to you before. I found somebody in the DC area who appears to teach it, and I need to connect the dots on seeing if she would be willing to give me some lessons on that because I would love to learn. Yeah. Um, I think I've mentioned this before, but like one of the things that I think is a little bit limiting in the way that we traditionally spin poi is that it's all about presenting the poi in wall plane here, which makes sense because the art form kind of grew up with online video. And so stuff that works in the two-dimensional format that a camera provides absolutely makes sense. But as soon as you're looking at anything that happens in it off angle here, and I'll just go full Monty on this. It starts to kind of fall apart. You can't see the cool patterns anymore. And a lot of the stuff that like we're just like, oh, I'm gonna do like some really super technical tricks and everything. It just doesn't look like anything from other angles. Whereas from what I can gather, and I'm going to do this terribly, but you'll pardon me for a moment. From what I gather with like Maori style poi, you're kind of working in an environment where it's supposed to work from just about any view, you know? You're supposed to see something that resembles, well, I'm not going to say resembles, but it will present something that is interesting to the audience regardless of their angle of viewing. So yes, I'm excited to learn some of that as well. And yes, Maori poi also tend to be quite light and have some challenges to control them. Maybe between glow stringing and Maori style poi, I will find some of the missing pieces for what I really want in terms of a dance poi style that is capable of expressing a broader range of human emotion. Because we definitely do work at something of an impediment where, like, you know, I have all of these options to interact with my body when I'm doing traditional dance, but doing those same things with poi is so much more difficult. So you really, really have to work at getting those moments where you're conveying something with the movements of the poi. But at the same token, when you're dancing with poi, you can go so big in ways that traditional dance just doesn't. So, yeah, there's a thing that I see in my head that I can't wait to find, and I need more training to get there. It's the long and short of it. Um, Anonymous 7765 says my stalls look like that with my poi pods. Oh, um, more practice. What can I say? When I can actually get them, it does take quite a bit of practice to get to a point where you can get super clean stalls with any kind of poi, and that's that. There's just no way around that, unfortunately. But I tell you, once you nail it, goodness, you can do some really cool looking stuff with it. Don't give up hope. It's out there. My stalls used to be terrible too. You can actually go check out some of my early tech blogs, and you will see some not great stalls in those videos. I heavily, well, and I still do. Um, in the early part of my career, I really, really heavily favored doing transitions with pendulums instead of stalls. And if you watch me really carefully, to this day, I still really strongly favor pendulums just because I feel like they're a little bit smoother, and stalls are um, they're a very staccato kind of movement, and I find them very jarring. So if I can find a way to get the transition I want without having to do a stall, I will most definitely do it. Um, so yeah, I know that pain. I have been there, and I Practice will get you there, I promise. Um, Anonymous 776, when I can actually get them. Samantha Ponga says, awesome. Yay! Wonderwook says, how about them new orbs? I like them. I like them a lot. Again, my review is coming out in another 2 weeks. Um, I think that they are a great version 2.0 of this product. I think that there's still room for improvement. Um, but overall, I've been really loving using them. I actually have been using them very frequently during the daytime, which is very, very rare for me to do with LED contact poi. I almost never use LED contact poi during the day, but these have been good for that for sure. I can give you more thoughts during the Q&A if you want. Renato Prazino, I just got back into Glowstringing with Ultra Poi. I'm a little rusty. Yeah, me too. This is just a dream. I ordered a set of Orb Poi a while back, and the quality is great, but I do not like the cord. I'm used to the older style, softer, silkier cord. The Helix Poi are pretty nice also, but very light. Yeah, I like the old rope. So, truth be told, like the rope that they had on the first generation Orb Poi, I think is some of my favorite rope. It's very accommodating. It's like very soft. It's a very, very friendly texture to the hands. The new rope that they're using is a hybrid rope, and it's more durable. I am told that part of the reason for that was just that they wanted the ropes to last longer overall. I totally get it. I still love the old ropes as well. I've been enjoying the new ones too. Um, yeah, I mean, the new ones have a different feel to them for sure. The mass is about the same. They're a little bit more abrasive, but I like both. I slightly favor the old ones, but at the same time, um, I kind of like this like little. I don't know if you can see it, but there's like this little twist through the new rope. This little like white thread that goes through it that I really like because it makes the rope show up a lot better on video. That's just my 2 cents. Yeah. Um, cool. We are getting close to half past the hour, so I will do a quick summary of everything I just covered, and then we will jump into the actual Q&A session here. So I've been looking for a while to be able to incorporate a broader range of tempos into my poi spinning, which is very, very difficult with contact poi because they're so heavy. But as it turns out, glow sticks are a great fit for being able to go between very slow and very fast, depending upon the effect that you're looking for. And I'm happy to report that I can move glow sticks as fast as I like to dance at my fastest, which is great. It has involved relearning some things, like the amount of momentum to put on the objects that I am spinning, as well as making sure that my plane control is super duper clean. It's also meant relearning my way around wraps. There's all kinds of fun ways to change direction with glow sticks because, of course, stalls, I think, don't look nearly as good with them just because of the way that the form factor interacts with the tether and everything. I always say and everything, and people call me out for that. Sorry, it's a verbal tick. And of course, it's made several things about one-handed poi spinning make a lot more sense to me, especially with tricks like the Superman and the Fantastic Four, which, as many of you know, I am quite a fan of. So I'm looking forward to more of these explorations and more of these, more work figuring out what the differences are between these two arts and what they're ideally suited for in each case. And now we're going to switch on over to Q&A. So we're going to spend the last 30 minutes of this live stream with you all throwing your questions at me. So go ahead and get those in the chat. In the meantime, one more quick shout out to UltraPoi for sponsoring this here live stream. You can get sets of all these poi over at ultrapoi.com. Please use the promo code DrexFactor with a 0 instead of an O at checkout. It not only will it get you a discount, but it also helps out the channel. So everybody wins. Go and check that out. Let me see what questions I hadn't gotten to yet. And please start lobbing those questions at me. I am here for the next 30 minutes to answer any question that comes up for you. So lay them on me. I can't wait. No topic is off limits, but we'll see. If it's a super sensitive question, we'll see. We'll see what kind of answer I give. Yeah, cool. All right. So this is just a dream. I already said orb poi a while back. I do not like the cord. I'm used to the older style, softer, silkier cord. The helix poi are pretty nice also, but very light. Yep, that was the last thing I talked about before switching over to Q&A mode here. Yeah, so closer look at these tethers here. Again, I love that like kind of twisty pattern inside of them. Yeah, as you can see, the LEDs are so much brighter in the new sets. They're so much brighter. They are quite visible even like before sunset. Um, you can see them during the day, but I wouldn't call them like daytime bright. I mean, you could probably tell what color they are during the day, but they don't illuminate the body as much as they do when it's darker. Um, yeah, full review coming in a couple weeks. I like the update overall. My biggest issue with them is just the battery life. I wish the batteries lasted longer. But I also recognize that for a lot of people out there, how bright they are is more important than how long those batteries last. So there you go. Renato Prezina says, my plane control is a little lopsided and it's been messing up my behind the back. Yeah. Oh, and also too, if anybody wants priority on their question, there is a little button next to the chat, a square button that's got a dollar sign in it. That is a super chat. If you use the super chat function, all that money comes straight to me. It helps out the channel, and I will prioritize your question and answer it right away to the best of my abilities. So just know that that's an option out there. My plane control has been a little lopsided and it's been messing up my behind the back weave. And I can see another question coming in about behind the back weaves there too. Yeah, so let me take a wild guess and say that it's your non-dominant hand that is having the biggest problem with plane control and all of that. Wild guess, I know, but oh, huzzah! Thank you, Kurt Hobbs. Kurt Hobbs says, I really enjoyed your time bomb flow video. That song always makes me want to move. It always makes me want to move too. Thank you so much for the super chat, and thank you so much for supporting the channel, and also thank you for the awesome feedback. I really loved that video as well. Hilariously, I got some people wondering why it wasn't. There's a punk song that I think is by Rancid that is also entitled Time Bomb, and somebody was really expecting that to be the song in that video, and they were a little disappointed. So maybe someday I'll go back and revisit some good old fashioned SoCal punk. Oh goodness. Rain has also left me a wonderful super chat. No question, just a happy donation. Oh, that means a lot. Thank you so much, Rain. That's very, very sweet of you. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting the channel. Cool. Let me scroll back through here. Oh yeah, so we're talking about behind the back weaves and plane control in behind the back weaves. Okay, so I'm gonna parrot Nick Woolsey here because his advice on this is just so good. But like, if you're really gonna do behind the back weaves, the very first thing you have to do is just really train the heck out of your behind the back planes. So the way to do that is you start off with like the poi spinning in wall plane, and then you start turning your body around, and you keep the poi plane in exactly the same spot relative to your body. And you keep on walking until you have your arm wrapped behind your back and you've got the poi spinning in wheel plane with your entire upper body facing the opposite way from where you started. So it's an exercise of being able to wrap your arm back around behind your back, and keep the poi plane stable the entire time. I hate doing this stuff because my arms are proportionally quite short for my height and my shoulders are not very flexible. So it can be a little painful for me to sustain this stuff. Um, but suffice it to say, you want to do this going both directions. So both with the poi spinning reverse with your hand behind you, as well as your poi spinning forwards with your hand behind your back, as well as you want to do this exercise with each hand. And I would venture to say that until you can do this reliably with each hand, you're probably going to have a rough time trying to learn the behind the back 3-beat weave. Because until then, plane control is really not something that, like, and like it's not that you're bad at poi when this happens. It's that you're trying to control your planes when your hands are in this incredibly restricted space, and that is an entire skill in and of itself. You can do all of the plane control exercises that you want to with your hands free, but but no matter how good your plane control is with your hands like free, when you get to a spot where your hands are not free, say like when your arms wrapped around behind your back, or say like when you're doing crossers, you're basically relearning plane control from the ground up. It is an entirely different kinesthetic uh, kind of skill. If you were really a sucker for punishment, if you were really a masochist, you could always just start by trying to learn the plane control in places where you lack a lot of mobility. And then when you get outward, you can, do whatever your plane control will be spot on. I would not recommend that for most people, though. Oh, another super chat came in. Alex Goodlad, hello. Thank you so much for the super chat, Alex. I will get back to this explanation in just 1 second. Hoop Spinner here. Welcome. I like Hoop as well. I love your videos, especially your insightful commentary on the state of the flow community. Have you explored other props besides poi? If so, love to hear about that journey. Yes, I have absolutely explored other props besides poi. You can't see it because it's hidden behind my scrim right now, but I have a prop wall with several hula hoops with several staves. I actually just pulled out my doubles. I think it was Wednesday night for the first time in like a year, simply because I had something in my head that I wanted to try out. Um, but yes, I do spend those other tools. In the past, I have also done some very rudimentary contact juggling. I have also done some, shall we say, unique rope dart. Basically, I treat a rope dart like it's a really long poi, which is not at all the technique that most rope dartists use. And there's a reason I don't do it that much anymore. Um, but yeah, I do all of those props. I've tried contact staff at different times, but really, when it comes right down to it, poi is the thing that I specialize in, and that I think is kind of home base for me. And I find myself every time I pick up another prop, like there'll be this moment where I get kind of tempted for a second. It's like, oh, I bet you I could find all these different things with this. And then I'll kind of like back up and be all like, but that's going to take time away from poi. So, short answer is yes, there are indeed other props that I spin, but not very frequently. And especially when it comes to hoop, I have actually like made it a rule in my head that I don't really do it for public consumption. Like I don't do flow videos of hoop because I want there to be at least one prop that's just for me and that I don't need to share with the world. So yeah, that is the answer to that question. Thank you for that. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so back to behind the back weaves here. Yeah, so that is how you train your behind the back planes. Um, and the behind the back planes are really what is necessary to be able to get down a stable behind the back weave. Again, without that behind the back plane control, this really isn't happening. I will also say something that really gets overlooked very frequently in learning behind the back weaves is that a lot of people kind of just like want to do it from a place where their arms are doing all the work. This is a horrible idea. Use your body, like rock your body back and forth. It's going to save you so much grief in your shoulders to not have to do all of these long reaches to either side of your body. And plus, which I think it just looks cooler. I think it like looks a little bit more dancey. I think that like as people are watching that and they see you rock from side to side, it kind of adds to the effect of it. So yeah, those would be my two big tips. Work that behind the back plane control, work it a little bit more. When it's getting to feel comfortable, work it even more. And then when you go full on to working on the behind the back weave, make sure that you're rocking your upper body back and forth as you do it to save yourself a little bit of effort. Yeah, that would be my advice in that case. Cool, cool, cool. And let me switch back to the main screen. Yay! Seriously, everybody. Thank you for the super chats. It's really lovely to like sit down and just like see those big old three blocks there waiting for me. That makes me really happy. Thank you all so much for your support. Um, bum. Struggle with my left hand, not my dominant. Oh, I buried the lead there. Yeah, somebody already mentioned that. Cool. Anonyname 776 also has problems with their left hand. Yeah, le- it takes a long time to balance out the hands, unfortunately, but it's worth it. It's really worth doing that work in order to balance them out, especially when you have tricks like weaves that do involve trying to balance all those pieces out. Ba-bum. My control with Renato Prezina says my control with anti-spin isn't time, but learning how to spin it in the opposite direction has been helpful. Interesting. Isn't in time. Anti-spin isn't in time, but learning how to spin in the opposite direction has been helpful. Okay. Um, you'll pardon me, but I'm not entirely like I'm trying to puzzle through that in my head, and I'm not exactly sure what spinning them in time means. But if you want to clarify, please drop me another message in the chat, and I can't tell if there's like a question or an observation there. Oh, but there is a question right below that. Renato Prezina asks, Flow Festival's coming back this year? In a literal sense, yes. There's a calendar now that I think has somewhere between 20 and 25 Flow Festivals here in the United States that have declared dates for 2022. And I believe I just saw that Wildfire has now declared that they are going to meet uh, on Labor Day weekend. I think Labor Day is the one in September. I can never remember, like, it's Labor Day and Memorial Day, and one of them's in May and one of them's in September. And I can never remember which one is which, but I think it's Labor Day. I think that they're meeting up Labor Day weekend. So, in a like very literal sense, yes, absolutely. The Flow Fests are coming back this year. Are they coming back in terms of attendance? It is still too early to say. We have only had one major festival that has met so far this year. That's Flame Festival, and to the best of my knowledge, they have they have not declared what their attendance numbers were. It's actually kind of rare for festivals to declare that information publicly, which I think that that stuff should be more transparent personally, but there's some who would disagree with me on that. Um, so as for whether they are coming back in attendance, I don't know. It's still too early to say. Yeah, if you wanted me to like place a wager, I don't think I think attendance numbers will either be at the same amount that they were in 2019, maybe slightly higher, but not by much, and then we'll see numbers drop back to 2019 levels or lower next year. That would be my guess. Oh, hold the phone there, Angie Watson. Woo! Uh, Thank you for the super chat, Angie. Angie is asking, do you have a book out or is one in your future? Funny you should ask that. I started writing a book before the pandemic. Um, and then when I switched to doing those daily tutorials, I kind of got out of the habit of writing it. So I was working on a book around my philosophy towards the flow arts, and um, the way I was doing that was I have the outline for the book done. I know all of the different chapters. I know all the different subheadings. I know the content that I want to cover in it. And what I would do then is for each of those different subsections, I would do a posting on Instagram that, like, that would be my excuse to write out that section. And I don't know off the top of my head. I would guess that I'm perhaps a third of the way through it. Um, but the intention for it always was to finish out that book and to publish an ebook that would be around my philosophy towards flow and the flow arts. Um, and a lot of people have been strongly encouraging me to go back to finish that book. And I did actually pull back up the outline for the first time in like a year and a half the other day, to take a look at what I'd already written and stuff that still needs to be written. And I would say that it's something that I do want to get back to. And I think that there are some gaps in my production schedule that would be a good fit for that. So I think, yeah, I think that I will have one out in the future. God willing, let's say in a year, maybe a year and a half. Oh, and Samantha Ponga also sent me a super chat. Thank you so much, Samantha. Once I get the behind the back weave plane control sorted, is there a video breaking down the weave because my brain just shuts down? Yes, I do have a video on how to perform the behind the back weave, I believe, on my channel. And if not, Samantha is also a Patreon supporter. So Samantha, you can also sign up for my Beyond the Basics course on my learning site for free. Um, and if the Behind the Basics course also has material on how to do the behind the back weave. I cannot remember if the stuff on my channel or on that course has like the close-ups of what the hands are doing behind your back, but one of them does. I just can't remember which one it is. So both will probably work. Um, yeah, it's yes, there is absolutely a video breaking that down, 100%. Yeah, without a doubt. Thank you for asking, and thank you so much for your support of this channel. I really, really, really appreciate you showing up here and, like, even as a Patreon supporter, helping me out with the super chat. That means a lot. Thank you. Um, ba, 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 ba. Where was I here? Flow Festival is coming back. I answered that one. Do you have a book out or is there one in your future? I answered that one. Oh, Samantha says, "Oh man, I'm already signed up for that course. I'll check it out." Perfect. Cool. Yeah, if it's not in that course, there is a video on it on my YouTube channel, which total tangent, but like one of those projects for this year is, so when I did the quarantine tutorials where I was posting a new video every single day. That material had all been developed because I wanted to create a course that was like, teaching people poi from scratch according to my method and my style. And I'd been compiling that information for months. And now that I've had a little bit of distance from that and everything, there's a big part of me that like wants to go back and like actually create that course and like, because the intro course that is on my learning site is very much a traditional poi course. It is very much centered around the idea of like, oh, you learn your basic plane control, oh, you learn your 3-beat weave, oh, you learn your butterfly and everything. And I think there's actually a better way to teach poi. Or I should say, I think there's a better way to teach Western style poi. And it starts with like reels and butterflies and stalls, and it's specifically built around um, using tricks that teach you plane control as you're doing them, and learning them like and learning combos with them as you go. I think like having an application for all these different tricks is important for really reinforcing the knowledge. So I think one of those projects for this year is going to be actually doing that course. So I just like have a beginner course that I can point people to. That is just like these are all the things that I really think that people need to know when they start with poi. And it's not the traditional canon, but it is the technique that I think fits best. And I think that the plane control around both crossers and behind the back weaves will wind up being a part of that. Yes. Oh, and those tutorials were so helpful. I realized I was just learning tricks, but there was no direction or strong foundation. Right? And that's just it. Is like I truly believe that if you give people a direction to move in when they pick up poi, it really reinforces the knowledge in such a way that they're gonna stick with it. I think that the kind of like throw a fish hook and see if you can find a trick approach to learning, it works for some people, but I also think that there's lots of people that need the direction, that need to know, okay, this is what comes next now. Um, and yes, I think having a course for that would be very, very helpful. So keep an eye peeled for that, dear friends. Ruben Castano asks, how should I get started with one-handed poise? I've been trying but can't get them to stay separated. Um, so this is my answer to that. Switch over to full body here. The first thing I recommend for people that are learning one-handed is that they learn the one-handed butterfly. Partially because this is already really similar to what you already know, and partially because there's a skill hidden inside of this. Oof. Um, Without exception, the hurdle that literally everybody needs to get over as they're learning two poi one hand is how to control the pinky end poi. There's nothing in traditional poi spinning that trains you for this, and the first time you try to do it, things will inevitably go horribly wrong because it is not a skill the other half of your hand has had to learn. So once you start learning that one-handed butterfly, here's what you're going to do with it. You're going to go ahead and splat out your planes so that they're nearly horizontal, and then you're going to bring them back up to as close to vertical as you can without them running into each other, and then you separate them out so that they're nearly horizontal again, and then bring them back to vertical. This exercise, you're going to do this over and over and over again until you learn how to control the planes of your pinky and thumb ends independently. Once you got that down, it's time to start working on your meteor weaves, because it's basically two different skills that you're working on there. One is just the rote plane control of what's going on with your pinky end, and being able to control that independently of your thumb end. And the other thing is, of course, being able to separate out the movement of the two of them. The amount of wrist motion that it takes to get down the two-beat meteor weave, again, is something that is going to be unfamiliar and new information. These are the two places that you need to start. And performing that two-beat meteor weave, you're going to find that you need to twist your wrist a lot in order to keep the move going. When you have those two fundamentals under your belt, a bunch of stuff is going to open up for you in terms of two poi one hand slash meteor land. Those are the fundamental skills that you need to start with, for sure. And, pardon me, that was gross. Trying, but I can't get them to stay separated. Okay, so you are actually learning one hand weaves there. The trick to getting them separated is really the movement of the wrist. It's like you're twisting a doorknob and then you're closing the doorknob as you go from side to side. Um, One way I would describe this honestly is that like you're you really need to think that your pinky end is basically like stuck in the mud and you're having to drag it around. Um, the separation comes basically from uh, being able to stretch out your wrist and hand in such a way that when you move your hand around anywhere, it's not just that like your thumb end is leading you around, it's that thumb end leads, pinky follows. Thumb end leads, pinky follows. And it takes a while to train that. It does. There's no way around that. But yeah. Cool, cool, cool. Already shared tips for behind the back weaves. This is just a dream. Also says I've had a lot of issues with one hand as well. I hope that helped. Samantha Ponga, thank you for the link between crossers and behind the back weave restrictions and plane control. Makes sense. Cool. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that was actually something that the dots connected for me on that in quarantine. That like, why is it so hard to teach these moves to beginners? I'm just like, oh, because it's literally starting over from scratch on plane control. It's having to learn the skill all over again. So you're welcome. I'm glad I had that insight and I could pass it along. Says no problem. Joseph Roberts says, since you are live, I personally want to thank you for teaching me everything I have learned from you. You're welcome. 1 year in and can't put them down. Hooray! That's what we like to hear. Yay! Thank you for sharing that, Joseph. That means a lot to me. That means a lot to me. Alex Goodlad said, I somehow became a hoop instructor in 3 fests so far and maybe a 4th, and am an ambassador slash volunteer 2 more. You're gonna have a busy year. I'll gladly report back to you on what the numbers are for the fests I attend. Please do. Yeah. Um, yeah, I've made it a habit for the past like decade and change to like have a conversation with the general manager of each event and like ask them what their attendance numbers were. I recently, of course, released a video on how the attendance numbers for festivals jumped up in the late 2000s and early 2010s and then declined in the late 2010s. And there were a lot of festival organizers who were kind of upset um, and didn't realize that I had aggregated together that data and it painted a picture. And I'm somewhat shocked that nobody else was aggregating that data together. It's very curious to me that there weren't more people that were like monitoring the health of that market, but here we are. Um, so yeah, please do report back on what the numbers are for those festivals. I'd be very, very curious. Um, Angie Watson says, cool. Alex Goodlad, yeah, that was my issue when I started body hooping, especially doubles. Lots of tricks, not a lot of synergies. Yeah, I agree. And it's something that I notice when I watch a lot of beginners spin because basically what will happen is they'll perform one trick for like a whole bunch of reps and then they'll stop. And then they'll perform another trick for a whole bunch of different reps and then they'll stop. And there was definitely an aha moment for me there in terms of they see these things as completely different things that are unrelated and they don't see how they fit together. I should teach this in such a way that the pieces actually fit together. Yeah. Ruben Castano says, thank you so much. You're so welcome. And we are at 2 minutes until the end of the hour. So if anybody has any last minute questions they want to get in, please do so. I just want to thank once more everybody who not only showed up, but also uh, submitted your most excellent questions, and especially the people that submitted your super chats. You all are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. And another thank you, right quick, of course, to UltraPoi for sponsoring these videos. And I will remind you all one last time, you can get a set of these new OrbPoi Pros by heading on over to ultrapoi.com. There's no slash there, just ultrapoi.com, and using the promo code DrexFactor with a 0 instead of an O at checkout. That gets you a discount on your order. The review for these is going to be out not this coming Monday, but the Monday after. Be on the lookout for it. Yay. Thank you again to UltraPoi for supporting these live streams and my channel. Um, Also, big thanks to all of my Patreon supporters. Y'all are awesome. This channel would not exist without you. I feel extraordinarily lucky that I get to make content for a living, and that would not be possible without all of you out there. So, thank you to all of you who are watching that are Patreon supporters. And if those of you watching that are not Patreon supporters would like to get on that train, you can do so by heading on over to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi and signing up. There's lots of different rewards that are available. So please give a look at that. Please and thank you. And of course, thank you to the friends of the channel, Dark Monk, Flowfests, Flow Toys, Juggling Calling, Pyroterra Light Toys, Spinballs, and Ultrapoi. And of course, the first non-business friends of the channel, Johnny Howard, Lane Wachinsky, and Pekka Pekkonen. Thank you all so much for your support of my channel. Cool. I'm not seeing any more questions rolling in, so I'm going to say that that is going to conclude our time for this month. Please come back the last Friday of May, which I will be able to tell you in just one moment is the 27th. Come on back, join us on the 27th, and we'll do it all again. Shall we? Sound good? Awesome. Thank you all so much. Have yourselves a good night. Be kind to each other, and don't forget to wear a mask if where applicable. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon. Peace out.